a lot has been written on it. There are many theoretical models, lots of psychological studies, also sociological studies. So I'll try to keep it really, 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 really simple. But the basic idea, right, is that we all have stressors as people. But then we have different identities, right, that for various reasons are marginalized, right? And in this case, we're talking about the LGBT community. And obviously there's intersectionality, and many of us have many identities that unfortunately are, marginalized in many different ways. So what happens is when you're a member of a minority, you, in addition to the stress that you have as, a daughter, a son, a friend, a worker, you also have that additional layer of stress because you are part of a given community or because you have a particular identity. Right? And that creates sort of like a two-level perspective on stress that makes it more complicated, because when we're thinking about regulating and finding the right level of stress, now at any given time we have sort of like two levels of stress that we need to figure out, right? The stress that you have as a person and the stress that you have as a member of a given community. And not to ramble too much, I promise I'll keep it short, but specifically when we talk about LGBTQ minority stress, we can think of structural stressors, right? So do you live in a state that doesn't have protections for LGBTQ employees, right? Or many years ago, do you live in a state that didn't have gay marriage, right? Or that didn't have different laws and protections for gender identity, right? So there's all that structural level of stress that you really can't control, right, as an individual. I mean, yeah, sure, we can get political and you can do activism and engage in many things, but ultimately, you don't have that much control over what's happening at the level of laws and at the level of government. So that's sort of like that higher level distal stressors. And then we have the more proximal stressors, which are the ones that we have more control over, but they're still difficult, and they're in our everyday lives. So we meet a new person and we have to come out to them, and we have to gauge their reaction, or we have to work through the anxiety that we might feel. Or somebody may not want to be our friends because of our sexuality or gender identity, or somebody may not want to go on a date with us, right? Or we may encounter all kinds of stressors at that more interpersonal level. So what I was earlier describing as two levels of stress now becomes almost like three levels, right? The stress that we all have for sort of being alive on this planet, the sort of distal stressors that we have for being part of certain communities that tend to be targeted and marginalized in a structural way, and then the more proximal stressors that also have to do with having that identity and disclosing or showing that identity to other people. So very complex.